Thank you all again for your time today. The idea is that you can all understand what are the key steps and the main requirements to be accepted in the Masters and PhDs in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department in the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Waterloo. To understand all that information, we have Professor Nadine. She's a professor in the Civil and Environmental Engineering. But the best way to learn how to contact a supervisor, understand the research, that is not like the professor explaining you how it works. We have also Shannon. She is a coordinator of Master of Engineering and Communications in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. We have Jamie. She is the graduate coordinator for Civil and Environmental Engineering. And I am Maria. I am your host. I am the marketing and recruitment specialist in the Engineering Graduate Studies Office here in the Faculty of Engineering. What will you learn today? You're going to learn what are the programs, the admission requirements, the deadlines to apply, what makes a good application, how to find a supervisor, research areas in civil and environmental engineering, a little bit about funding and awards, of course, that is important. The University of Waterloo is leader in industry connections. We are well known for all those connections that we have always, not only here in the region of Waterloo, but mainly Ontario and Canada, because of the co-op opportunities, because of the research heart of the University of Waterloo is to be connected, that what you're learning is useful in the industry. So that's why we are leading that aspect. We also have top labs, institutes, and centers. We will require like another entire full session to explain all the facilities that you will have access as a Waterloo student. That's why as well we are a top ranking school here in Canada and around the world. Everybody knows what is the University of Waterloo. And of course, we know that not everything is about academics. We have a bunch of clubs and associations. The campus is huge, so you will have many activities to do in the university, and the city itself is a nice place to be. Remember that only at Waterloo, your ideas, your intellectual property. 100% of the ideas developed at Waterloo are owned by the creators. So if you're one of them who has like a special idea, like something that is new, that is going to change the world, and you are the owner of that. It's not the university, it's not the professor. If you come with your idea, it belongs to you. So you can license your idea, you can commercialize it, or even start your own company. That is one, there are many, but that is one of the reasons why you see so many entrepreneurs coming from the University of Waterloo.
So why graduate studies? So it would help advance your engineering career. You can create and support research projects. They're designed to strengthen and expand upon your technical, research, and practical skills, and also attain more specialized knowledge and tools to work in some aspects of your field of research. So step number one in the process is to define the program that you want to apply to. So we have 3 graduate programs. We have a Masters of Engineering program, which is course-based, and then our 2 research-based programs are the Masters of Applied Science and our PhD program. So for our Masters of Engineering program, since it's course-based, you'll take 8 courses. 4 of them will be within civil and environmental engineering, and then 4 kind of your choice. Some things to consider if this is what you're looking for. If you're interested in developing your leadership and project management skills, if you're interested in specializing in an area of engineering. This course-based program typically takes about 12 to 16 months, so a year to a year and a half. It's all self-funded, and we also have detailed degree requirements there, which we'll touch upon a little bit as well. And then for our research-based programs, they are pretty similar, but of course, one has different requirements to get into it, so we'll talk about that in a bit as well. But for our Masters of Applied Science, you'll take 4 courses, and you'll also have your research-based thesis. This is a great program if you're wanting to develop and join a research group with a supervisor, if you're maybe interested in pursuing a PhD or career in applied engineering research or working in industry. This program typically takes about 2 years to complete. There is a little bit of flexibility there. This one is funded by a supervisor, and again, there's more requirements there. What's unique about our research-based programs is we also have a collaborative program with the Water Institute on campus. So those ones are direct entry applications. So when you're going to apply, you'll kind of pick Masters of Applied Science or Masters of Applied Science Water. For our PhD program, you'll take 3 courses, you'll have your research-based thesis, and you'll also have a comprehensive exam. Same kind of ideas if you're wanting to join a research group, if you're interested in maybe becoming a professor and getting into the education part of it. This one typically takes about 4 years to complete, again, funded by a supervisor, and also has the water program available as well. So when you're looking to apply to these programs, we do have 3 intake deadlines. They are 6 months before the beginning of the term in which you'd like to start. We have February 1st, June 1st, and October 1st. So our next one would be for our fall intake, and that one's February 1st, for example. You have to submit all your required documents in order to be accepted into our program. And again, I'll walk through all of that, and it's best to get ready in advance, have everything ready to go so that you are ready for that deadline when it comes. So step number 2, of course, is understanding the admission requirements, application documents, and all of that. Again, we've got our 3 programs here. Our course-based Masters of Engineering and our research-based Masters of Applied Science are pretty similar. So you do require a bachelor's degree with a minimum of 75 equivalent. It does say in acceptable discipline, so this could be any engineering field of study. Does it have to be civil and environmental engineering? It can be anything. It can also be outside of engineering, but it is best to have some kind of engineering courses under your belt or some experience so that you are set up for success in this program and you do have a bit of an understanding going into it. We also require 2 letters of reference from professors, so best to reach out to them ahead of time because sometimes that season is really busy and they have to write lots of reference letters, so get into them as soon as you can. As well, proof of competency in English if applicable. We do have a list of English language proficiency exemptions and also required scores, so that will be shared with you as well. The resume and supplemental information form is also required. The supplemental information form is just a couple of questions just to see where your interest is, to have a little bit more understanding about yourself. What's different is that our course-based program does require the GRE, which is a standardized test for students whose previous education was outside of North America, so Canada or the US. And for a research-based program, it's highlighted here as it's not being a requirement, but it is kind of recommended finding a supervisor beforehand. So as I mentioned, it's not required to apply to the program, but it is required to be accepted just because you'll be working directly with the supervisor, so they kind of take you on. Our PhD program, a little bit similar, but there are some differences. So you do need a master's background with an 80% standing in your degree. You do require 3 letters of reference, 2 academic and 1 professional. Again, same thing, English language, resume, supplemental information form, and as well, finding a supervisor. Not required to apply, but it is required to be accepted into the program. So for our English language proficiency, we do typically get the box there, the TOEFL and the IELTS test. So those are our kind of required scores that we have. We do have a list of exemptions. For example, if you did your undergrad in Canada, or you have a graduate degree from Canada, or things like that. So definitely check that out if you aren't sure. This civil and environmental engineering uses the University of Waterloo's alternative minimum scores, so that's something to look at. Something to consider for our English language proficiency requirements is that if you are submitting a test, it does need to be within the past 2 years. So we wouldn't be able to accept anything from 2020 just because the test expires. So we would require something within the past 2 years to be valid. On our next slide here, we do have kind of an international student guide for applying, grade equivalencies, all of those things. So as I mentioned, for our master's program, we do require a 75% average. And then for our PhD program, we do require an 80. International students and students from, wherever may have different grading scales that they look at. Maybe they have a 3.75, and how does that measure up to a 75? So there are grade equivalencies here. You can look and see kind of how your grade measures up, and just make sure that you are kind of on the right track for success when you are applying. So finding a supervisor, as it was touched on a little bit before, you don't need one to apply, but you do need one to be accepted into our program. And if you ask anybody, it's definitely encouraged for you to find a supervisor ahead of time, just to make sure that you are set up for success. You've got those connections, they're looking for your application, and they're kind of ready to see your application package. There is a lovely video and website set up to find a supervisor and have those resources. And maybe you don't know where to start for that. So there's 2 QR code links there. The first one is where to start for research, or where to start for finding your research area and finding a supervisor. So I believe in this one, you can search by department. So you can look through civil, you can look through mechanical, wherever to see research areas there, or you can search by like actual research area. Maybe you know the research area, maybe you don't know what department it falls in. So those are super helpful there. And then also the second link there takes you right to our civil and environmental engineering page, shows you our research areas and our supervisors that work in those areas. So easy to make those quick connections and can help you reach out to them as well. Talking about research areas, I think this is a great segue for Nadine to kind of take it on from here.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Shannon. So I'll walk you through some of the research areas that we have in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. And really my goal is to create some excitement about the research that's taking place in the department. All right, so the faculty that we have here, they conduct advanced research in both the fundamental areas of civil engineering, so this is our core, our basic areas, and also the emerging areas of civil and environmental engineering. So when it comes to emerging, some of the buzzwords around climate change or sustainability or resilience or circular economy, and those are sort of woven throughout the research areas. And we have 4: environmental and water resources, geotechnical, structures, mechanics, and construction, and transportation. And then you can see 2 QR codes to the right there. The first link here will take you to a more detailed page of all our civil and environmental engineering research areas. And then the second one is a more generalized page about all the research areas across engineering, and Shannon had touched upon that a little bit. Moving on, just to take you one by one. So in the environmental and water resources research area, it's an extremely strong research area within our department, and it's been identified as one of the areas of strength of the University of Waterloo at large. There was mention about the Water Institute, which is a truly interdisciplinary institute that brings faculty and colleagues, students and grads and industry across all 6 faculties. And within that institute, the environmental and water resources research area is really at the core of what goes on at that institute. And of course, you can click on the link on the civil engineering page specifically on the environmental and water resources to learn a little bit more. But if I can share a little bit of the research areas, I would say it includes examples like hydrology or hydrogeology, river restoration and rehabilitation, drinking water treatment, wastewater treatment, water resources planning and management. So it takes water, wastewater across the whole spectrum of water services. Moving on to the next one. In terms of our geotechnical research area, the faculty that are part of this research area, they bring with them a range of academic expertise, but also industrial research experience because of their connections to industry, both the private sector and the large-scale organizations that they work with. And again, you can click on the geotechnical webpage to learn a little bit more. But if I can share a little bit of examples of some of the research areas, they include things like the micromechanics of soil, sustainable water pipelines, soil structure interaction, soil dynamics, properties of materials, experimental mechanics, stochastic systems, building science and performance. So everything geotechnical, there's a little bit for everyone, depending on the interest. And moving along to the next one, when it comes to structures, mechanics, and construction, that's a pretty strong research area within the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, and we've got an outstanding track record of providing both excellent education and opportunities for training. So one of the highlights are our very large labs. They're fascinating where they are located, both to our undergrads and our grads, and they are also supported by specialized technical staff, and they are really the backbone of all the experimental work, all the lab work that takes place for a very large cohort of lab-based graduate students who work on experimentation and can really rely on the support that we get from the technical staff. So again, you can click on the Structures, Mechanics, and Construction webpage to learn a little bit more. And to give you examples, it includes applied mechanics, structural mechanics, steel and concrete structures, structural reliability, properties of materials, experimental mechanics, stochastic systems, and building science and performance. And that takes us to our 4th research area, which is transportation. And the Transportation Research Group is really one of the strongest groups in the country, so across Canada, and it includes faculty members that really cover a wide range of both academic and industry expertise, also because of the connections to industry. And so on the transportation side, it's really a mix of both the traffic and transit modeling, but also on the materials. And again, depending on your interest, there's something for everyone because it captures both the traffic modeling and the materials. So to give you an example of some of the topics here, traffic engineering, pavement management systems, public transit, transportation planning, properties of materials, experimental mechanics, stochastic systems, and again, building science and performance. And so having covered all 4 of our research areas, I hope I've created some excitement about what goes on here in the Department of Civil Engineering, just wearing a professor hat to give you a snapshot of that. And I'll turn it to Jamie to walk us through the remaining steps.
Thank you, Professor Nadine. So yes, the fourth step is regarding financing your graduate studies. So I know, as mentioned previously, there is funding for our Masters of Applied Science and PhD programs, as this is provided by your supervisor. Please note for our MEng program, that is a self-funded program, as MEng students do not have a supervisor. We also do provide TA, so teaching assistant opportunities. This isn't guaranteed. However, when you become a graduate student, there is a training course you can take to learn how to be a TA. And then once you take this training course, you can apply to TA spots, and this would be for additional funding. In regards to international students, so for our PhD students, we do have an IDSA, which is an International Doctoral Student Award. So this would be additional funding on top of the minimum funding. And please note, this is just for international students in the PhD program. The university also has a Waterloo Awards database. So this is a web page where you can go and look for awards that we offer within the University of Waterloo, and you can see which awards that you would be qualified to apply for, and you can see what the application process is like. There are also external awards, which we do recommend students apply for. And these examples of these are NSERC and OGS. If you want to learn more about these awards, you can scan the QR code that is in the corner, and it will give you more information regarding awards and funding. So the next slide is regarding minimum funding, which we touched upon briefly. So for Masters of Applied Science students, for 2 years, you're guaranteed $18,000 per year. And for PhD students who have a completed master's, which is the majority of our PhD students, you are guaranteed $26,000 for 4 years. For PhD students who do not have a master's degree, so are just coming from a bachelor's, you are guaranteed $26,000 per year for 5 years. Please note that most of our PhD students do have masters, and only non-exceptional circumstances we admit PhD students without a master's. So step 5 is actually physically applying. So this would be going onto the online portal and submitting your application. This is what our online portal looks like. You would go to step 2 for applying, and please note that the GSPA has set up a guide that will show you the step-by-step process on how to submit your application. This will help you through the process before, during, and after your application has been submitted. You can also go to that link at the bottom of the page to apply. If you have any specific questions regarding our program, please contact Shannon for MEng inquiries, and contact me, so Jamie, for Masters of Applied Science and PhD inquiries. And if you want to learn more, please feel free to visit our webpage by scanning the QR code at the bottom. And you can also always email us to ask questions.
Thank you so much for all the explanation. Of course, this is very useful to guide all the students interested in the programs in civil and environmental engineering. For now, we will go to read all the questions that we have in the chat. But just before that, I would like also to share our graduate page to show all the resources that you were mentioning. We invite you all to visit the graduate studies page. I have been sharing all the links here in the chat. Here it goes once more. So over here, you can find the programs. In this case, you can find what is the difference of the kind of programs that we have. As Shannon explained, the PhD, the Master of Applied Science, the MEng. Here you can find the deadlines to apply. You can find the admission requirements. You will go, of course, to the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. You can visit the page. Here also, you can visit the page of research and supervisors. Over here, we have all the details, all the guidance, even the advice of how you should approach a professor like the Professor Nadine, the options that you have to find the research area. In this case, number one, you can go to the page of Civil and Environmental Engineering, and then you will find all the resources. For example, if you are interested, let's say, in environmental and water resources, then when you click on it, it will show you more details and it will show you who is involved with that kind of research. Just to give you a full example, so let's open the profile of Professor Bill Anderson. When you see the entire profile of the professor, you will see their contact information. You will find the biography, the research interest, the education, the publications, and it will show here if they're accepting or considering applications for graduate studies or for graduate students or not. So this is a key step. So number one, of course, you need to identify the professors if you're interested in a Master of Applied Science or the PhD, to identify what is the research area of your interest and what are the professors running research in that area, so you can contact them. Also, I would like to share that if you don't know exactly, like it's more about a specific research area that you're interested in, you can go in option number 2 and visit this page where you just can type over here your research area of interest or even a professor, and it will show you the same information, the profile of the professor, so you can try to contact them. Another page that we mentioned here is this one for international students. So over here you can find what are the international grade equivalences, what are the English requirements, and if you don't have them, then how you can maybe look for the EFAS program. Here there is even more information relevant for international students, your study permit, immigration, all those questions that you will have. And here you can find as well everything about student life, the athletics and recreation, the clubs that we were mentioning, the region of Waterloo, how to find a house. So please visit this page, and of course the civil and environmental page with all the resources. Now we can jump the questions. So here we have John is asking us, can I do the MEng part-time while I work?
Yeah, so the second question is also about being part-time in virtual classes. So I thought I would just kind of do them both in one.
Perfect.
So we do offer part-time and full-time enrollment for all programs, for research and for our MEng program. So if you are a part-time student, you're only able to take one course per term. And if you are full-time, you can take 2 to 3 courses. So some kind of reference point is, I believe, 1 graduate course is the equivalent of 2 to 3 undergrad courses in terms of workload, so something to consider. And we currently do not have any virtual classes, so it is all in person. But yeah, you're able to do part-time or full-time, and you're also able to switch between the two. So if you start full-time and you realize maybe you can't handle the workload and you want to drop down to part-time, you're more than welcome to, or you think, I actually can handle a couple more courses, so you can switch between full-time as well.
I think the only virtual program that we have online and part-time, it's in another department, in management and science engineering. If Mohammed, if you are interested in virtual classes, you can find the Master of Management of Technology. That would be, I think that's the only one that is on virtual 100%. The next question we have, same from Mohammed, for the reference requirements, what if I do not have academic references? Does professional reference work in exception?
I believe that we only require academic references for our MEng program, and I guess for both, for the research program as well. We require 2 references. At minimum, one of them needs to be academic, and then the other one can be from a professional that you're working with. But it is perhaps better to have two academic versus 2 professional.
So Mohammed, you do need you do need an academic reference, correct?
Yeah, an academic reference is needed. And I just want to point out, for the Master of Applied Science, we actually need 3 letters of references. So 2 of them are to be academic and 1 can be professional, but it is pretty standard that we do need those 2 academic references. Just especially so they can speak to how you could do research, especially for the Masters of Applied Science. So that's a pretty important component.
Yeah, you're applying for academic to study again, so that's why it is relevant.
Exactly.
Okay, Hamdallah is asking, do you have prerequisite courses for those who plan to apply for a master's degree?
Can you repeat the question?
Do they need to take courses before to start, or some courses are required to apply for a master's degree?
No, so we don't have any specific courses that are required before you start.
Maybe even in that direction, it's not a question here, but in that direction, do they need to be civil engineers, or they can be from another?
They can be from, it does not have to be civil engineering. It can be from another department. In regards to the Masters of Applied Science and PhD, really the key component is finding a supervisor. And if a potential supervisor feels your academic background would be beneficial to the research you are conducting, that's what really matters in the long run. If that makes sense.
Yes, I think that was like the questions.
Yeah.
What do they need to take? Stephanie is asking, do you have any wood construction or engineering wood products research line?
Yes, I unmuted there so that I can take on this question. We certainly do have faculty that work in the area of timber research, and they are primarily in the structures, mechanics, and construction research area. So there's the typical steel and concrete, but there's also timber. So to give you an idea, some of the research going on at the moment and the labs associated with timber research includes timber design, blast and impact engineering. There's a little bit of the dynamic behaviors of timber and timber hybrid structures. When it comes to wood properties, the high strain rate effects on wood properties. And we have quite a few faculty members that do that, so you can identify them. When you look through their research interests, you'll notice that timber, perhaps sometimes worded as timber, but sometimes you also find it worded as wood. And they are also heavily involved in the development of some of the codes and standards around timber design and construction. I hope that sort of gives you a bit of a flavor of some of the timber research going on.
I think so. I think Stephanie found it, that this is the place. Jose Quintero is asking, hello, and thank you so much for the presentation. It was very helpful. I'm interested in applying for the Master of Applied Science, and my question is, can I provide professional reference also, or it has to be only 2 academic references from professors? Maybe we can.
You can provide 3 academic references, that's fine. We have the minimum of 2. So all 3 can be, or a minimum of 2 and 1 professional.
Okay. Live, okay. Shailova, my apologies as well if I am not able to read the names correctly. I'm here trying my best. Chilova John is asking, thank you for the informative session. Please, I have 2 questions. Is there application fee waiver for Master of Applied Science applicants? And second, do I need to secure a supervisor to get admission and funding?
In regards to the waiver, we can't make that decision. That's at the GSPA level. I do not believe they are giving waivers. You would have to double check with them, but I don't think they are.
Yeah, it's more like a standard in the application process. GPA is the Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs.
Yeah.
So they let's say manage the application process with all the faculties, including engineering. So that's not something that we can handle. So no, for the moment, could be.
Yeah, and regarding a supervisor, so you can apply without a supervisor However, to be accepted, you must have a supervisor lined up to take you on, as they are the ones who provide your minimum funding. So yes, to be accepted, you do need a supervisor.
That explanation is always confusing, but that's how it works. You don't need it to apply. You don't need it to apply, but it's better. But you do need someone who can accept you, so then you can be accepted in the program. Only if it's research. If it's course-based, you don't need a supervisor. We have another question. Horku is asking, what if I successfully completed the courses and waiting for the MSc certificate, but wanted to apply for PhD?
Yeah, I'll jump in with this one because I think it's also applicable for our MEng students. If you don't have, like, you're kind of still finishing your degree but want to apply, you can apply with your unofficial transcript, and then we'll look at those grades and wait and make our decisions based on that. And then if you do receive an offer, one of the conditions of your offer will be that you do have to submit your official transcript in order to kind of come to our program. Anything that's for your bachelor's or your master's and any other education that you have.
Perfect. And Paiman is asking, do you have any age limitation for PhD application?
Oh, age limit. No, there's no age limit.
Sorry,
yeah,
yes.
That's okay. No age limit. No.
Okay, yeah, there is no limit to study.
I added there saying it's never too late to learn.
Never,
Exactly. You can learn at any age. So yeah, no age limit. No age
In fact,
limit.
I think we never stop learning.
No, I'm learning all the time.
Yeah. Perfect. So, of course, you are more welcome to apply. That's not a limitation. Miguel is asking, can you please tell us if it's possible to finance a Master of Applied Science with bank loans?
To apply with a bank loan? So, I mean, we don't know how you're receiving your funding to apply. So on our end, that's okay. But just to be clear, for the Masters of Applied Science, that's not a self-funded program. So in order to be accepted, you still need a supervisor to accept you, and you need that minimum funding. We don't accept students as self-funded as a part of our Masters of Applied Science. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. That was the question. So here it is, Miguel, for you. Just check this page. Funding, scholarships, and awards here in the graduate studies page. It will show you, there is a full webinar that talks about funding. It is 1 hour session, so I invite you to see this session as well. Here you can see the details about the minimum funding. Here you can find everything with the TAs, the RAs. You can see that the payment and everything that you could receive if you are an international student as well, the other possibilities that you have, and others. So all the information is really here, the internal awards, external awards, bursaries, loans, tuition, budget. So I invite you all to visit this page. But it's asking, please, I'm having a challenge in getting a response from potential advisor I mailed to. My question is, he's asking, maybe I did something wrong, even though the interest was in the line of that professor, or what the professor does, that he's not getting a response. So that, what could be the advice? He's asking, maybe I'm doing something wrong.
And you're probably not. This one's a tricky one because I know it's very hard to get in hold of supervisors. You have to remember they're, managing their own graduate students. They're conducting their own research. They're teaching courses. So they're just very busy. The best advice I can give is being persistent in emailing, ask to maybe schedule an appointment to meet with them. You can even call if you happen to be on campus, which I know for international students, that's probably not the case, but you can go to their office for those who are on campus. So just being very persistent. If you still cannot get a hold of a supervisor, still please apply, because we do circulate the list of all of our applicants and we do send it to all of our potential supervisors. So they will still have access to your application even if they haven't responded to you before the application deadline. So that is definitely a way some of our supervisors do look through students and do end up accepting students. We just say it's always a good idea to try to get a supervisor in advance, as that's the most likely route you would get accepted, but there is that option as well.
Can I jump in here to add? As someone who is on the receiving end of these requests by email, there is a heavy number of emails that do come through. And the website that was shared with guidelines on what are the best practices in terms of reaching out to supervisors, how do you introduce yourself, what do you say? I think those guidelines speak true to really how things are done well. So you haven't necessarily done anything wrong, maybe just a little bit of patience and persistence. But I would say sometimes some emails sound very generic. It's as if it was sent to 10 of us. So sometimes personalizing it to the specific research area of that faculty member really gets their attention. And sometimes you can jump a few steps by also including your resume or your transcript, because that gives the supervisor reading your email a little bit more information about you. And they could quickly, by scanning those attachments, make a quick decision and or perhaps offer a response back to you in terms of asking for more or willing to engage in a conversation over email with you.
Yes, thank you so much for that explanation. And for sure, as we have been advising you, please visit the Research and Supervisor page. There is a full webinar as well with all that guidance and this specific advice that the professor gave you. Don't send a generic email, of course. Okay, so we have a couple of questions. Are there any specifications for the statement of purpose? Maybe words limits and other constraints?
I think there are. I think there's like a character limit or a word limit, but it'll let you know on the application. It's I think designed to be short and sweet. So that's something that I would try and stick to, is try and kind of cover what you're trying to say, and like a really condensed kind of format. But I think it'll let you know on the application when you get to the supplementary information form. I think it's maybe 150 words per each question, depending on which program you're applying to.
We have another question. My GPA is 65%, but I'm really interested to apply for a master's degree in civil engineering. Is this acceptable for Waterloo University Department of Engineering?
I can answer for the Master's of Engineering program because it is course-based, and then maybe Jamie, you can answer for the Applied Science and the supervisor part of it. So for the Master's of Engineering program, it's all course-based, and you take 8 courses, and we want to bring you in and hope that you're going to be successful in it. We don't want you to come if this isn't the environment that you're necessarily going to thrive in, doing a bunch of courses. The research areas might be a little bit different, but if you're meeting everything else, you've got all of that. We kind of can't make decisions just based on your transcript. We look at your references, your English language score, resume. We look at a complete package. So while your GPA is a little bit lower, there's still other factors to consider. But something to keep in mind is based on the load. Let's say you want to come in, with full-time student. Each course is weighted similar to 2 to 3 undergrad courses. So we just want to make sure it's an environment that you can thrive in, want to set you up for success. And again, we don't make any decisions without seeing the full application package.
Yeah, to go off what Jan said, but for the Masters of Applied Science, we do look at the full application, as we can't always just base everything off of grades. So in regards for the Masters of Applied Science, let's say your average is a bit lower than our minimum, but you do connect with a supervisor, and there's a supervisor who is interested in taking you on for their research project. That is definitely something we can discuss and see if we can still admit you into our Masters of Applied Science or even PhD program. For those applying for the PhD, again, there's no guarantee, as our minimum is technically 75, but that is something that we can discuss.
Go ahead. It's about your entire profile. We have a question about someone that is coming with the family. So if there is any facilities or something that they, like any support that they receive, I think the first thing that you will have to see is here again in the graduate studies page, when you click here in student life and the region of Waterloo and housing. Over here, you can find all the resources to find a house. There is again a full webinar that explains, that address all your questions about housing in Waterloo. Here you can find the resources to find Waterloo residences, Waterloo off-campus housing, graduate and student families housing, the residences as well in Waterloo University colleges, and even more explanation about study, living cost here in the city of Waterloo. So here we are. So for WorkU, I advise you to see this page so you can see where you can move with your family. Of course, it's a big decision where you are not moving by yourself, but bringing your family. So I think this could be a great resource. Jumana is asking, can I still approach professors after the application deadline? Can I still approach professors after the application deadline if I can't manage anyone before the deadline?
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely still approach. You can let supervisors know that you have applied and you would still like to meet them to discuss your application. Absolutely.
If I'm currently employed as a lecturer in a university and therefore involved in research as a faculty member under senior professors, can I refer to them as academic references, or are they considered professional references? So she's working in a university. She's involved in research.
Good question.
Yeah, that is a really good one.
So are they academic or professional? No, I think either one would work. I mean, because a part of having an academic reference is to have someone supervise your work in like the academia industry, and then professional is typically like industry experience or wherever else. So I think it could kind of fall into either category. I mean, worst case scenario, let's say you submit it as an academic reference. When we go through the approval process and everything, and, you know, maybe when it gets to a certain level of, you know, the chain, someone wants you to resubmit a new reference, we can always, Jamie and I also work with applicants to make sure that we're having a full application. So if anything needs to be changed or added, we would be reaching out to kind of help support that. I don't know if Jamie, there's anything else to add or any opinions, or Nadine too. I see you chimed in.
Yeah, I feel regarding this one, as Shannon said, it could work as either. I think it also depends on how you are working with this person. If you're working together on the same research topic, I think that could work as academic. But if you aren't working together and you're just colleagues who kind of pass by each other, I would say that would be more of a professional reference. I think it depends on how you are working together. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, I think it could be even more details here. You can probably, maybe you can send the details about that specific question. Here are the contact information. So maybe we can find more details with the admissions team. So when you apply, you're good to go.
Can I jump in to
add?
I think the idea behind academic references is perhaps reaching out to professors that have taught you in the past. So those definitely qualify as academics. So in this unique situation where the person asking is a lecturer themselves, and it could go both ways, because the person, a senior professor who would be writing that reference letter, identifies as someone academic working at an academic institution, it may not necessarily qualify that as an academic reference, only if they are able to speak to your research expertise. That's really the goal behind these academic references, is that there is someone that has worked with you that can speak to your research expertise, your academic caliber, and that gives us a little bit of confidence into how you would really apply what you've learned and can contribute in a research environment.
There you go. You have mentioned the minimum requirements for TOEFL, but is there any average profile we need to have maintained in terms of Master of Applied Science so that we can compare ourselves whether we are good fit or not before applying? Or English requirements? Mm-hmm.
I think, Jamie, you can also answer this one. Part of this question, I don't know if you can see the question, also talks about their GPA. So if you want to speak to the English language and the GPA part.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, for the English language, as long as you meet our minimum, there's no other comparison you have to look at. For our ELP requirement, just make sure you're meet our minimum requirements. In regards to our GPA for the Masters of Applied Science, really it is that 75% standing or equivalent that you need, that you really need to meet to be admitted into our program.
And I think part of it too, they're talking about like maintaining it in the program. You also need, I think it's a 75
to stay in. Yeah, it is still a 75. That is correct.
Perfect. And I think we just have space for one more question. It's 10:53. So may I ask if the PhD program still needs to pay tuition after receiving financial support? Maybe I can help to answer this question here. So my advice for you will be to see here the tuition and budget. There is a great tool over here, the student budget calculator over here. So depending on the program you're applying to, consider as well, of course, your living costs. Like, it helps you to have a general idea of how much it could be. So you can make here the calculation according to the minimum funding that you will receive and the tuition of the program that you're interested in. Then you can make that calculation here. I'm going to give you the link. I don't know if someone has anything else to add to that question. No? So there you go. Because it really depends. I know it's annoying when we ask a question, it's like, it depends. But it really does, according to the program that you are applying to. Okay, so...
And sorry, can I jump back to
Yes.
the last question in regards to maintaining the average? Sorry, it's not 75, it's 70.
Oh,
So
perfect.
you need a 75% to get into the program, but you need to maintain an overall average of 70 once you are in the program. My apologies for that.
No worries at all. We're looking for good students. You're going to have a great experience here. So of course, you're required to maintain a good standard in your grades. Okay, so I think we finished. Thank you very much for your time, Professor Nadine, Shannon, Jamie, and all the participants in the webinar. I think you were able to answer many of the questions that maybe they had before joining this webinar, and also the remaining ones at the end of this session. So I appreciate your time, and hopefully we're going to see very good applicants coming to the University of Waterloo in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thanks
Thank you.
everyone. Thanks for
Goodbye.
attending.
Bye-bye.
Bye.